All right, welcome back everyone to the part 2 webinar on how to finally have the nutrition results you deserve. It's Dr. Nick here, leader nutrition, performance coach and founder of the NutriFit program. Today in part 2, I'm going to show you the solutions for our 3 biggest food problems we face daily. But before we dive in there, let's have a quick recap from part 1. What we learned there were the 3 biggest food problems are firstly, we're all told that a calorie is a calorie. Secondly, that we've all been told to eat low fat. And thirdly, that food provides for all of our nutrient needs. So in this webinar, we're going to provide some easy, simple solutions that you can implement on a sustainable way to have the results you've always wanted and deserve. So what are the 3 main fundamentals for a successful eating regime? Well, they are number 1, low sugar. And we have already identified in part 1, this is something that's a real problem, it's addictive, and we're just overloaded with highly refined processed foods in today's world. But if we start to reduce the intake of this food and we reach for high fiber options, whole fruit and vegetables that also have high micronutrients that are abundant in vitamins, minerals and phytochemicals, we can really start to make progress. But why is it that so many of us just have the inability to do these 3 simple things? Well, there's a host of reasons, but here are some 5 key ones. Firstly, temptation. There are so many different types of foods available today. I mean, you walk into a supermarket and you'll just see so many options on the shelf, where we also have the convenience factor of wherever we go, there's fast food outlets, there's corner stores, there's just food is so ready at hand. And then there's sometimes where we just forget to prepare and plan our food, and we have a lack of access. So we're not able to have the right types of foods, and that can cause problems. But the final 2 here, boredom and seeking comfort, are probably the 2 big ones. And if you're honest with yourself, those watching here, we all have some susceptibility to particularly having comfort foods. And they're usually those foods high in sugar and fat. The most common is chocolate. We're a nation of chocoholics, to be honest. And let's face it, it just gives us a sense of satisfaction and reward and makes us feel good. And the problem though is that we don't just stop at 1 or 2 pieces. We tend to emotional eating when we want comfort and we're bored or we just had a bad day. We just tend to keep going, and this leads to an excess body fat development we talked about in part 1 and the health issues, and we just feel frustrated. So how do we break out of this cycle? Well, here are some eating strategies that I've put together as part of the NutriFit program that can really help you move forward. And the first one here is a timing issue. It's eat at regular intervals every day. That is every 3 hours. Now that translates to about 4 to 5 meals a day, which for most New Zealanders, they're actually eating at about 3 meals a day. For some, that's okay, but the problem is that the longer you leave food consumption, the hungrier you get, and you may enter into a state where you just don't care about what you're eating. You're in a feeding frenzy and you'll grab whatever's available. And I'm sure those listening can identify to that, having done that at some point. So the more regular you eat, the more control you have over food, and interestingly, the less energy every day that you'll consume. Number 2 is also a timing issue. That is, eat foods high in carbohydrate and sugar, mainly after exercise, after working out. So you don't have to actually get rid of particularly sugary foods, but you just have to make sure you adjust them and eat them at the right time. You probably heard of things like high carb foods that are increasing your levels of body fat storage, and there's actually good merit to that statement. But the thing is, we don't need to go on some sort of really low carbohydrate regime. We just need to make sure that we are having carbohydrates that are adjusted or in relationship to the type of activity that we do. And so this one is a really important strategy for making sure we have the body composition we're after. And particularly avoiding sugary beverages, that's key. Unless, of course, we talked about chocolate milk, where you just had a weights workout, where actually that might be favourable. Number 3 here is eat protein foods, vegetables and or fruit with every meal. Now, high protein foods you can source from either animal products or from plant foods. And they're going to give you, as we talked about in part 1, an increased feeling of satiety or fullness, so you don't feel as hungry. They stabilize your blood sugar, so that keeps you your energy more level, and you typically are more productive throughout the day. You don't get the up and down in your energy, and don't feel like you sort of want to fall asleep, as some do, particularly after lunch. Fruits and vegetables give us lots of nutrients, we talked about just before, high micronutrients. So if we start to increase vegetable and fruit intake every meal, this is really going to make inroads into the fiber we need and the micronutrients we need. Just be mindful that fruit does have sugar, and so some fruits you want to really just consume mostly after working out. Things like bananas, pineapple, mango, cherries, grapes, yes, all the sweet foods. You just need to be mindful of over consuming those. And number 4 is eat the right type of fats every day. This one is a key strategy for maintaining health. And the most important aspect here is our omega-3 fatty acids. You've probably heard of. We get them mostly from fish and seafood, some canola oil and walnuts. But to be honest, most of us are not eating sufficient amounts every day. And so this leads us to needing to look at additional sources of omega-3 fats. And I'm going to talk about that coming up. So I would sort of term omega-3 fats as a whole body health tonic. They're powerful anti-inflammatory compounds, and so they really give us a great increase in our overall health. And the last one, we alluded to this in part 1 also, regards fluids, is drink calorie-free beverages whenever possible. So we want to be eating our energy rather than drinking it. And here's a staggering statistic that 25% of the energy that's consumed every day for most New Zealanders comes from fluids. So that's a huge amount. So if we actually do, and that causes mostly soft drink and fruit juice and energy drinks. So we need to really start to focus more on eating energy, and this is really going to help us control our body composition, improve our energy and our overall health. Now, what's another key aspect here is movement and regular exercise. We don't have to be a high caliber athlete and doing hours and hours, but just doing something. That is maybe some gardening or moving or walking, ideally on a daily basis. And this helps with our muscle insulin sensitivity, so we have more glucose control. This reduces diabetes, helps to reduce stress, because we're so overloaded with our hectic lives. I mean, exercise is a stress, but because it's transient, it actually helps overall to help just keep us in a more stress-free state. And exercise is great for liver metabolism and overall health. There's so many benefits. But here's one of the key mantras that I love to reinforce, that it's better to be fat and fit than thin and sick. So, it's not all about just having low levels of body fat. It actually is about moving our body, keeping our biochemistry and good health, because we don't want to actually be like so many New Zealanders and those worldwide. In fact, 40% of those who look normal have abnormal levels of high body fat in their abdominal region, and that leads to poor health outcomes, some of which we talked about in part 1. So one of the key aspects here for the solutions to our big food problems is increasing micronutrient intake that we just talked about. So how do we do that? Well, are supplements a solution to this issue? And I discovered about 4 years ago now that actually there's a lot of merit to boosting our nutrient intake. In fact, there's really good scientific support. And we see here from JAMA, which is a really credible journal. They took a bold stance back in 2002 to publish an article saying it appears prudent for all adults to take vitamin supplements. And that's a big statement from a journal that's highly credible in the medical area. So what other evidence now exists? Well, there's the nurses study that was conducted a few decades ago, but a very powerful study of nearly 89,000 nurses, indicating that consumption of vitamin C and vitamin B6 on a prolonged basis resulted in 25% reduction in the risk of heart disease and a 30% reduction in the risk of heart attack. So that's significant. And also prolonged folate consumption, which we know is important for pregnancy. But if we do this on a long-term basis, i.e. over 10 years, we start to see some dramatic decreases in the risk of colon cancer. So that's some very strong evidence, and more recent evidence indicates in US male physicians that, and this is a really robust, randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled study. So this is like a really robust study in a large number of individuals, showing that there was a modest but significant reduction in the risk of cancer with multivitamin supplementation. So there is definitely scientific support. Now, I mentioned before about fish oils. This is not a micronutrient, but definitely something that we need to look at in terms of adding to what we consume. Now, the reality is we just don't consume enough from our food, and sufficient omega-3s can have a whole host of positive health benefits, with reductions in heart disease, improved circulation and blood pressure, and reductions in asthma and brain function. It's a powerful, as I mentioned before, anti-inflammatory, so it has this widespread effect on our body. And here's an example in Norwegian men where fish oil supplementation, sufficient amounts on a long-term basis, reduced premature death by 47%. So this is very strong evidence supporting the use of fish oil. So what should you look for if you're choosing to use a supplement? And many of those here in New Zealand and also in Australia have, in fact, about 50% of the population have at some point used some form of nutrition supplement. But the problem is that most of those are not ideal. So what you want to look for is something that's free from contaminants, they're pharmaceutically graded, that's critical. That is, they're manufactured with good manufacturing practices, just like you would use to manufacture drugs. So there's quality controls, there's batch testing, solubility testing, and so forth. Potency guaranteed, that is what's on the label, is in the bottle itself. That there are science-based formulas. We talked in part 1 about the optimal level of nutrients required, and you want your nutrition support to give you that. That it's approved by an anti-doping regulator, so certainly for athletes, that's critical. There's third-party credibility, which really just means that you're confident that there's a range of evidence that really supports what you're using, and there's no iron in a multivitamin mineral, because iron in higher amounts can be toxic. So to perform at a high level in any area of life, I really recommend you consider optimizing the nutrient intake from certainly nutrient-rich food, low sugar, high fiber, high micronutrient food with a really high quality supplement also. In fact, here are the 5 essentials for mastering your health as we close in this webinar now. Of course, nutrition is fundamental. You've got those 5 strategies, and coupled with that, good hydration. Now, at least 2 to 3 litres a day, and I recommend out of a glass if you can, rather than a water bottle, because you'll drink more. A high quality supplement to fill the gaps, because our food just is not as nutrient rich as we consider it is, as we mentioned in the part 1 webinar. We need to be physically active. We talked about that for the importance for glucose control, for our overall metabolic health, and we need to regulate stress. That's so fundamental. Just taking time out, enjoying the joys of life, celebrating, right? And also we need to make healthier choices easier. And actually, it's just an approach that if we do simple things like we think about what we're going to do before we rush out the door for the day, we write a meal plan. It takes just as much effort to go out and find highly processed, refined food as it does to go and look for really healthy food. So just starting to look at things simple things you can do. So here are some key questions to finish. Are you going to be proactive or reactive with your health? So many just wait until, oh no, I've fallen over here, or I'm in a crumbled heap, or I've got a major health problem. So ideally, you're going to be proactive. And if you want to take that step with your health and find out more about the NutriFit program, I mentioned those NutriFit 5 strategies, or the high quality supplements that I personally use and recommend, then contact me at the email there, nick@nutrifit.co.nz. You can check out my website, drnick.co.nz, or jump on Facebook at Dr. Nick. I've got some regular postings on there to help you out. So I thank you for listening today, for joining in on this 2-part webinar series. I I really hope the information really is useful to navigate that minefield out there and to improve your quality of life, to improve your health, and to have you achieving those results you've always wanted and that you deserve. Until next time, my friends, eat well and take action every day to master your nutrition.